Dar comienzo al segundo día de conferencias del FLI. Gracias por todos por estar aquí. Realmente no hay muchos avisos, solo como saben, esta sala se divide en tres para las breakout sessions. Tenemos también el Creativity Room en el lado izquierdo o el lado derecho, depende de dónde estén, del salón. Es un espacio de colaboración de muchas organizaciones que se unieron para aquel espacio. Entonces, si tienen reuniones que quieran hacer, muchas sesiones, después de las sesiones que se hacen aquí se van a hacer allá también, dense una vuelta, es un gran espacio de colaboración, aprovechen. Sin más, quiero dar la bienvenida a Charlie y Elisa Klisner. De verdad son de las personas que más admiro en lo personal. Han sido pioneros de todo el tema de Impact Investing desde hace muchos años ya, desde su fundación, desde sus empresas. Y bueno, platicábamos que tiene una casa espectacular en Big Sur, que creo que es la envidia de todo el sector, es la de las casas más hermosas que he visto en mi vida. Tuvieron la reunión anual de Tonic, fue en octubre del año pasado, y bueno, nos conocimos ahí, fue que los pude convencer de que vinieran a Latinoamérica para platicarnos de lo que han hecho, porque realmente es impresionante lo que han logrado hacer, tanto lo personal como en la fundación como en sus empresas, en términos de Impact Investing, y decir el 100% de su tiempo, de sus recursos lo están destinando a esta industria, y creo que es un digno ejemplo de lo que hay que hacer, y creo que es algo que tiene mucho que dejar para Latinoamérica. Entonces los voy a dejar que ellos se presenten para que puedan platicar un poquito más, y les pido un fuerte aplauso para Lisa y Charlie.
Muchas gracias, Rodrigo, for the great introduction. I'm going to try to figure out how this works here. And it does not yet work. The clicker. All right. Okay, up here. All right. So I am Charlie Kleisner, and I'm very pleased to be here today with you. Looks like this is a little bit off. Okay. Okay, just 1 second here. Oops. All right. Okay. So Lisa and I, we are the co-founders of KL Felicitas Foundation, of Tonic, of Social Impact International, and of something that we call the 100% Impact Network. We will talk about these efforts this morning as we go along and share our story. And we are very pleased to be here in beautiful Merida, and spending some time with all of you in exploring impact investing and our journey into that and our results and lessons learned. We will talk first a little bit about our story and then go into the meat of the discussion, and that's the portfolio that we constructed, which is 100% into impact, meaning that all of our investments in all asset classes are aligned with our values and are invested in investments that have positive social and our environmental impact. And we'll go about sharing our financial results with you, as well as the impact of our portfolio, and then at the end of our talk, elevate the discussion again to really talk about the ecosystem of impact investing, the trends that we see around the ecosystem, and finally a call to action so that we can collaborate from all over the world in having more impact. So let me share a little bit our story. And for those of you who are native English speakers, you will detect that I have an accent myself, and that's an Austrian accent. So I'm Austrian, and Lisa is Hawaiian, so that's why I wear the Hawaiian shirt, and Lisa almost wore some lederhosen, not really. But and we immigrated in 1986 to Silicon Valley, California, the US. And we had a spectacular career in Silicon Valley. Lisa created her own company and was focusing on strategic facility consulting and management for startups as well as big corporations in Silicon Valley. And she took stock instead of money sometimes, which turned out to be a good thing in the 90s. And I was the senior technology executive in 3 successful startups. The first one in a company called Next, which is the company that Steve Jobs founded after he was fired from Apple. And I was in charge of developing the operating system, which now some of you who have iPhones and iPads actually run. It's called System 10. And Steve sold that company back to Apple for $400 million. And then I participated as the CTO in a company called DataMind, which we sold to Epiphany in the 90s for $400 million. And the last for-profit gig that I did was a company called Ariba, which was just recently bought by SAP for $4.5 billion. And so that company made a lot of wealth for our shareholders, including ourselves. And that's the majority of our wealth is coming from that pot. And so we were settled. Oops, I didn't do anything. You see, you should not run Microsoft. This is not a good thing. Well, be that as it may, while we recover, my keynote presentation, which I guess messes up the Microsoft platform. The meaning of wealth and the meaning of money for us who actually are these asset holders, became a fundamental question that we needed to respond to for our own sake. And we decided, fortunately, okay. Well, we decided, I can tell you to move it forward if I'm messing it up by clicking here. And so maybe that works a little bit more while I talk. So we decided that for us, wealth comes with a deep responsibility of actually making a positive contribution to humanity and the planet. We don't understand the position of financial people or intermediaries or asset owners who don't think that way, who think that it's just for their own sake or for any non-meaningful way of aligning your values with that. We also think that a classical philanthropy that just does handouts, classical foundations that just perpetuate the myth of that grants only would be the solution to systemic challenges is as bad as classical capitalists who make us believe that maximizing shareholder value at the expense of everything else is the holy grail. Is as bad as community activists who don't think about a sustainable model to actually sustain hundreds of thousands of communities all around the globe. And so when we started our foundation, now imagine a slide that says foundation. KL Felicitas Foundation. I try one more time. And okay, all right. Just bear with me for 1 second. Okay. No, it doesn't move forward. Well, okay. You try? Yeah. You see, I'm the technology guy, but Lisa's trying it out now, so that's okay. So I was at the foundation, which was our starting point of actually... Wow. See? We're good. We're a good team. It's. When I get stuck, then she jumps in. When she gets stuck, then I jump in. That's how it works. And we talked about the meaning of capital in our foundation. Can you just forward to our foundation? Oh, see. So that's the foundation. And so the foundation is our first expression of that desire of aligning our wealth with meaning, right? And our foundation's mission is to support social entrepreneurs worldwide to have a bigger impact. And the second piece of our foundation's mission is actually to promote and advocate 100% impact investing like we do today. And on that note, I'll hand it off to Lisa, and she's going to walk you through our portfolio.
Thank you, Charlie. Buenos dias. We are really excited to be with you today and to talk about what we're doing in our portfolio. But I think what I'm more excited about is actually to be here in Mexico, because we have an investment in Mexico. We have terrific partners down here, and to see the number of people in this room and the energy in this room for me is personally very exciting. So hopefully I don't get so excited that I forget what I'm talking about. So I'm going to go through our impact portfolio construction, but I don't want to stand in front of my husband, so I'm going to stand over here so I can see him.
Whoops. I made a mistake, I guess.
No. I want to be able to see my handsome husband. So let's define impact investing, because one thing that I do know is for everyone in this room, everyone has their own definition. And that is what the beauty and the challenge of impact investing is. So for us, and this definition, by the way, is from the World Economic Forum and from GIN. It's sort of it's what's currently out there, and it really resonates with us. The two pieces of it that are really important for us is that it's an investment approach that intentionally seeks to create both financial return and positive social and or environmental impact, and that impact is actively measured. And so the two important words are the intentionality and the actively measured. I'm going to now show you our sort of the inner workings of our portfolio. For those of you who have or are in the investment industry, you'll recognize this chart. This is the asset class allocation. And if you look to the left, you'll see the classic categories like cash and equivalents, fixed income, public equities, hedge funds. So we have our portfolio strategy is wrapped around a certain asset class allocation. And the green on those bars indicates what is currently in impact. What's red is where we're still looking to fill the bucket. If you had looked at this maybe 7 years ago, there was a lot of red, and we use that color on purpose, and very little green. So today, actually this is from June last year, we are almost topped out. We're almost at 100% in our portfolio. That's the good news. This chart here shows a little bit the story over time. So starting in 2005 on the left, going to 2013 on the right. And the different colors represent the different themes of impact that are in our portfolio. And as you can see, it was a long journey to get there. If you wanted to do this today, you could do it a lot quicker. In fact, I've heard of people converting portfolios in 6 months. So there's much more product out there. I'm going to now show you what the difference is between impact product and non-impact product. And this is just from our perspective. And as I said, everyone in this room is going to have their own definition of this. So for us, in the cash department, non-impact would be something like Wells Fargo, Saks, Morgan Stanley, Bank of America. Why? Because Bank of America, as an example, finances the coal industry in the U.S. And we, as a principal, have divested our portfolio of any extractive types of investments. So what does then a cash portfolio look like for an impact investor? Now notice how many different options there are. This is just what's in our portfolio. There are tons more options out there on the marketplace, places where you can put your capital, your cash, and have an impact either regionally in a development bank, or you can have it more globally. For instance, Triodos is doing work in Africa. And I suspect that there are opportunities here in Mexico as well. Just two real quickly, Southern Bank Corp is doing work in the Mississippi Delta area with financial literacy and community development, very significant work. And New Resource Bank focuses on sustainability. Another example of fixed income, we have a number of investments in that bucket. Just to quickly focus on the Media Development Loan Fund, it's basically a 5-year note. It supports journalists around the world providing debt capital that they wouldn't have access to in their locality. And it's part of maintaining their right to be a journalist in some pretty hot areas around the globe. So I did mention that we're not in extractive. So an extractive portfolio, these probably look really familiar, gold, oil. We don't have that in our portfolio. So what do we have? Well, we have things like renewables and carbon in our portfolio. And so Eco Asset Management Partners is an example where they focus on basically sustainable conservation and carbon deals, and they also work on creative financial packages to do that work around the globe. Their big focus is here, they're up there in the U.S. And then lime timber is a renewable forests. I'm going to also talk about Beartooth Capital. It's a conservation play that's quite unique, where it's leveraging grant and for-profit capital together to essentially be able to do the conservation work that's needed on private property and then remarket it back out to the community. So both the conservation community gets what they want, and the investors get what they need also. And this portfolio was returning double digits at the time. In 2008, 2009, we were getting double-digit returns from that portfolio. What you see here is a renovation or a restoration they did to a trout creek to bring the trout back. So most people identify impact investing with seed stage, but as I just demonstrated by our asset class allocation, that actually you can do impact investing in every asset class. So that's public and private, both. But obviously, seed stage is a big deal because seed stage is where we all in the room can have the most impact by helping to nurture these seed stage businesses so that they grow and they flourish, and then they can move the industry forward. So in our portfolio, which is 3% of our total portfolio, this is a list of them, and I'm just going to go into one, which is BioLite. BioLite, you probably have heard of the cook stove innovation that's happening globally. This is one of many, but this has a rather unique bell and whistle. Do you see that little thing that looks like a mouse sitting on the side of the unit? Basically, this is a cook stove that generates electricity, and so folks in the rural area, while they're cooking dinner, can charge their cell phone or charge their LED light. It is priced to be able to, it's affordable with an upside to the manufacturer at a price that can be directly bought without microfinance. That's very significant. And we invested in BioLite 3 years ago. They serve the recreational market and they've basically disintermediated the current type of stoves that people use for camping. And there's a smaller version of this that you can take backpacking, and that business just took off. They didn't expect. They were thinking a little bit of business in the U.S. and in Europe. They're now shipping to 70 countries. They were named the top product of REI, which is basically a recreational store in the U.S. It's quite large, and they named them the top product of 2013. This, by the way, over 2 million women, children, and adults die from smoke-related health problems every year. And this stove actually reduces smoke emissions by 95%, and it also reduces fuel consumption by 50%. We also have funds, and I wanted to put Adobe Capital up there because we're incredibly proud of having Adobe. But I also have to say we'd sure love to have more investments in our portfolio from this part of the world. So I'm just putting that out there. And Grassroots Business Fund is another example. That's a fund that's global that is doing work similar to Adobe. And now we get to pass it back to Charlie.
Well, great. Thank you, Lisa, for keying up a little bit the portfolio approach. And people always ask us, well, what financial returns have you actually accomplished with this approach? And most people think that we have to take some level of discount. And we want to point you to a report that just came out that we co-authored with Sonnen Capital that actually explains across all asset classes what our financial results are. And we have been very meticulous in comparing in each asset class the return of the impact investments with a benchmark that's appropriate for that asset class. And we will show you a few results today, just 2 or 3, but I invite you to download the report either from our website or the Sonnen Capital website. Next. So for instance, Lisa talked to you about that we have some cash positions in certain banks. And here we show you the return of our cash positions over 1 year, 3 year, 5 years across these columns. And next. And on this side, we show you the gross returns, the net returns, net of all fees, and the relevant industry benchmark, which in this case is a 3-month treasury bill. And in this instance, our net return significantly outperformed the industry benchmark by almost 50 basis points. Next. Here we show you our Impact Global Fixed Income, which you remember the slide that Lisa showed you about the investments that were in this bucket. And we compare our returns in these impact investments against the Barclays Global Index aggregate. And the dark line on top is the return of our impact investments in our foundation, and the lighter line is the Barclays aggregate. I highlighted in this slide what happened in 2008 and 2009, which you see right up here, where our fixed income indeed acted as an absolute return strategy, meaning returning positive returns through 2008 and 2009. The reason of this is, of course, that these impact investments, some of them, are not correlated to the financial system. Therefore, if the financial system tanks, these investments don't tank. Next. Last slide I'm going to show you is about public equities. We do invest in public equities, and we hold public equities accountable to the ESG standards, environmental, social, and governance standards. And again, what we observed on the fixed income is also happened in public equities. Not only, must be me, huh? But the surprising thing on these was not only did we not go down as far, but we actually recovered faster after 2009, which we didn't expect. So the market actually already understands a little bit and gives us the benefit of the doubt, right? And rewards us with financial benefits because of that impact. And I just point out that in the 5-year return on public equities, we had a 5% advantage over the respective benchmark. Next. What you would see next is actually the aggregate performance across the whole portfolio, where we outperformed across a weighted benchmark across asset classes by about 20-30 basis points. And so what that really means is that we have proven to the marketplace that if you take a very deliberate approach to impact investing across asset classes, that you actually don't have to take a financial haircut. Now you would see a photo with a haircut. So I have Lisa go over actually the impact assessment of our portfolio.
So I'm going to riff because there are no slides. So we because we're a small foundation, we didn't want to write the rule book on impact metrics. And fortunately for us, Rockefeller Foundation made a very generous investment in this. And so we use IRIS. And by the way, the IRIS, and I think the GIN team is here, and they're going to be doing a workshop on that this afternoon. And I really encourage you because, you know what? Financial metrics are important, but I believe the impact metrics are even more important because if we are talking about impact investing, without that impact being measured, the non-financial impact, I don't think we can really talk about impact investing. So, oh gosh, maybe it's working. Yes, okay. There's the haircut. So there's IRIS and GEARS, and IRIS stands for Impact Reporting and Investment Standards. And also, Tonic, I helped co-author a report on impact measurements that's used for small and growing businesses, so you might want to take a look at that. That's on our website, and it's on the Tonic website. Also, there's a case study on our methodology on the Rockefeller site. So this is how we look at measuring. We do it in 3 ways. We do it across our portfolio, in sectors, and then we have our own qualitative, and these are off the map. They're not part of IRIS. They're our own thing. I'm going to show you some examples of what that is. So here's the core IRIS metrics that we use across our portfolio, and these are ones that would apply to every investment, irregardless of sector. And notice that a number of them are financial. So I'm going to then drill into one specifically, and this is jobs maintained. And I'm going to take you right over to BioLite, which is on the left. And notice the green would be the first year, and the second year. You see how the jobs have risen in comparison to their financial returns. So obviously, those two should correlate. We do have a distressed investment in our portfolio, and that's Pico Bonito, and that's in the middle, and you see the bars going down. So that obviously fits. And then that last bucket that I talked about, the qualitative one, I'm going to drill into catalytic real quick. Catalytic would be where we invest in a fund, and the fund ends up being and we're their first-time fund manager. It's the very thing that any institutional investor wouldn't even touch, but we do it as a leadership investment, and it then actually moves and has a second and or third fund, and we have a number of examples of that. If you want to learn more about this, I'm zipping through this quickly, sorry, because we're running out of time. And although, do we get extra time because of technical difficulties? Okay. There's two publications. One is the Solutions for Impact Investors, and it talks about a portfolio approach. This is also downloadable from the Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors site. And then the document on the right, I have little cards here. And I'd love to announce that the Tonic e-guide to early stage global impact investing is now on the Tonic site in Spanish, translated by Marianne, one of Adobe's own employees. She worked for them for 2 summers. She's now an MBA student up at Stanford, but she did a super job, and I hope you enjoy it. So now we're going to move over to Charlie and the ecosystem.
Okay, so we heard about the portfolio, and now we're going to take you up one level and talk about the ecosystem of impact investing. And I want to actually share with you a little bit the dynamism that's going on worldwide in our field. And so what I put up here is a little bit the supply and the demand side of capital, the investors and the investees and the intermediaries, right? And I focus on this particular slide on the a segment of the market that's really high net worth individuals on the investor side, small foundations and small intermediaries and small institutional capital. There is also a lot of activity going on the retail side and the institutional side. We're not going to go into that today. And then on the product side, we see a lot of movement not only on individual opportunities for investing in single companies, but also in social venture funds, in multi-manager strategies, fund of funds, all types of products available. And we see a lot of new intermediaries coming up. For instance, Sonnen Capital, which we talked about as our co-author of the report, sharing the results of our portfolio. Next. For those of you who are actually either supporting or are social entrepreneurs needing capital, there is now a number of accelerators and incubators that are coming up all over the world that help social entrepreneurs become more impactful. And they provide services like peer-to-peer learning, access to capacity building, access to blended capital, such that the investors can then really go and invest in these opportunities. Next. Lisa and I are co-founders of an incubator of incubators, Social Impact International. And we have worked in India with Dasra Social Impact to make sure that 30 to 40 entrepreneurs per year get access to capital. We've done a similar program in Vienna, Austria, for Central Eastern European entrepreneurs. And Lisa is leading the charge in doing one in Honolulu, Hawaii, for the Greater Pacific. Next. Networks are another real important component of the ecosystem, and we are particularly always pleased in participating and co-creating global networks that have regional identities. And the Hub, for instance, is one of those, and I'll talk about a couple of others in the next 2 slides. Tonic is one that we co-created about 3.5 years ago. It's a global network of impact investors, and we syndicate capital from all over the world into these deals, early stage deals, and now also funds across the world. And we do that by sharing the due diligence information with all of us and by co-investing and learning from each other how to do that. We have about 60 members right now all over the world and have done about 50 syndicated deals. Out of that network came the 100% Impact Network, which is a global peer-to-peer network of asset owners who have intentionally committed 100% of their assets to impact. And we have over a couple dozen asset owners in that particular network, again, all over the world, with over $2.5 billion earmarked for impact and self-reported over $1 billion already in that. That is the network where we explore postmodern portfolio theory and other trends. So with this, Lisa, trends.
Trends. I'm going to zip through these too. So layered capital. We are invested in a number of deals where they wouldn't be deals had they not had a layered capital approach. And that means taking grant capital and a lot of different financial devices and combining them either vertically or horizontally in order to fund and grow the company. This is an example, eHealthPoint, which, as you can see, this is a map of how the capital is layered in a horizontal fashion. And sometimes you get both with an investment. You might get a vertical and a horizontal layer on them at the same time. One of the people in the room who wrote an article or a white paper on this is John Kohler, who's sitting right there in the back row, yes, if you want to read up more on that. Global networks, I'm just going to zip through because Charlie just talked about it. Networks are critical. The transmission of information over the internet is overwhelming, and if you don't have a network that you can go to that is zeroed in on a specific area where you can dig deeper into the value and cut through the volume, it's very hard to be effective. So I would encourage you, this is a network right here. This is the proof that it works. Crowdsourcing. We have seen some amazing innovation in crowdsourcing, and it's curated crowdsourcing, not just willy-nilly anybody, but really targeting certain groups to solve critical problems. And I'll give you an example. NVU in Rotterdam had 8,000 professionals come together electronically and create a product that's an application that identifies first responders who happen to be near the closest to an accident so that they can respond quickly. And it sends them data on the location of the incident, and it's improved life and death outcomes in the Netherlands. Crowdfunding. We've all heard about crowdfunding. I wanted to, but crowdfunding is just going out the roof. And I want to read this because I want to get the numbers right. So there's more than 1 million crowdfunding campaigns. As of 2013, this is what the measurement was. An estimated $2.7 billion worldwide since 2012. 50% of that capital went to social causes. This figure was expected to reach $5.1 billion last year. I don't know what the actual number is yet. Compare this to the impact investing industry in the U.S. that went from $4.3 billion in 2007 to $8 billion in 2012. And all of a sudden you see in a very short amount of time, a significant amount of capital went into social investing through this platform, much quicker than impact investing has over a much longer period of time. And so I think you can begin to appreciate what a significant tool this is going to be to democratize access of way more people to aligning their money with what they're passionate about. The total portfolio theory is what we've been talking to you about today. What we've showed you is a holistic way of approaching your asset ownership. What we showed you was our foundation, but we actually use the same strategy across all of our assets, not just the foundation. And this beautiful picture here, even though you can't see the detail, the inner circle are the impact themes. The outer circle are the asset classes that are represented in those theme areas. And that is, you can download that and drill into that more in our report. And I think the trend that we're seeing with the 100% impact network is not only do they think like this, but they're actually creating a whole new way of looking at the whole asset class allocation, modern portfolio theory. They're actually rewriting the book. So stay tuned for our next report, which probably will be about that.
All right, so I'm going to have three more slides to wrap up things here. And what I would like to start out with is these principles that Lisa was just talking about. So back to how we impact investors really think about the work that we do. And the most important principle that organizes our thoughts is the intention for positive impact. So all the investments that we do come around with an intention for positive impact. It is not okay to have the intention of avoiding the next downturn. That's negative intention, right? And so we're talking about the joyful activities of doing something, making a positive contribution. At its core, these investments are really an expression of who we are. That this is how we express our values on that level, right? It's not an intellectual exercise with somebody who has a job. Lisa talked about the principle of reimagining the modern portfolio theory into total portfolio activation across all asset classes, where the impact is baked into all the activities that we do, from a due diligence perspective all the way to the term sheet development in partnership with the impact that you want to accomplish, to the monitoring and the feedback loop into how we want to accomplish the impact and measure it. A lot of work to be done on that one. Now, an intention without paying attention is like a strategy without a vision without a strategy. It's good to have intentions, but then we need to put the full attention to realizing the potential of the impact behind our activities. And finally, we cannot get too attached to the perceived outcomes, because a lot of times we try things out. Systemic change is not that easy to accomplish. I'm reminded of the commencement speech of Steve Jobs, my former boss, when he told the Stanford graduating class in 2005, that you don't know at the time of doing things how you connect the dots. And as impact investors, sometimes we try things out, and then we need to let go and figure out actually the beauty of making a positive impact. Next. Before I end on a positive note, I want to read this little New Yorker thing here, where it says, yes, the planet got destroyed, but for a beautiful moment in time, we create a lot of value for our shareholders.
Let's hope that's not our story.
So here they sit around the fire, right? And ladies and gentlemen, you know, the system is really perpetuating the processes that would end up this. But let's end up on a really good note, and that's from one of our heroes, a systemic thinker of world class, Mr. Buckminster Fuller, who encourages us to be the architects of our future and not the victims. So let me end on this note and say thank you for listening to us, and we very much look forward to the dialogue during the day. Thanks.